Whether you're new to pool and practicing the basics, or a more experienced player performing drills to improve your shot making and positional play, the Drill Partner is perfect for you.
Mr. Panozzo, how are you, my man?
Good. I'm good. What's going on?
Well, it's your birthday for one, and I put your ass to work, so I feel kind of bad. A little bit. A little bit. Not a whole lot, but just a little bit, buddy. Happy birthday. How you been, Mike?
Good. Everything's good.
How old are you these days, Mike? Or are you like, are you at the point where like, you don't want to mention the age? Come on.
No, I'm 67.
Man, you're looking good, Mike, for 67. Shit.
Holding up.
Yeah.
Holding up.
You've been going to the gym these days, Mike? You look like you're losing some weight, actually, now that I think about it.
Yeah, I have lost a little bit of weight, actually, because I don't carry weight well.
Yeah.
Because I don't have any shoulders. I don't have any chest. So if I gain any weight, it's all in my ass and my waist, and it looks ridiculous. So, I've lost a little bit of weight just to kind of feel better. But
we got some regulars.
But still,
go ahead, Mike.
Still going to the gym. I mean, you don't get a body like this without going to the gym.
Are you doing the box jumps, Mike?
Sure.
Okay. Michelle in the chat says happy birthday. MV says happy birthday as well. Mike, some regulars in the chat. So welcome back, everyone. No, it's been a little bit. I've been on the road. Mike's been, I don't know where Mike's been. He wasn't at the expo. He wasn't anywhere.
I've been here waiting for your call.
You've been what?
Just been here waiting for your call.
Well, it's funny because I hadn't hit you up in a little bit, and then I texted you just last night. I was in the McDonald's parking lot with Madeline, and I just said tomorrow, and you said I'm around, and then I wake up this morning and I see the Facebook notification about birthdays, and I was like, man, now I feel like a real asshole. So, but
yeah, it's not like I'm going to sit around all day and take the day off. I mean, this is,
well, what do you got planned this weekend, Mike? Surely you got to have a nice cocktail and dinner in mind, knowing you.
Yeah, we'll do that tonight, and then I'll be back. I'll be here all weekend getting the next issue out. So it's closing time. So
there's a lot going on.
What you got to do?
What's that?
There's a
lot going on, Mike, in the pool world. A lot upcoming, a lot that's been happening. Like I said, I just got back from California and Philadelphia. Another expo in the books, Mike. I can't say I'm it was a good time, but I want to lead with the expo, Mike, and kind of get your take. I know your man Keith was out there. I got to say hello to him for a little bit, and but it was real brief because it was hectic out there on the dance floor, as they say.
Yeah, no, it looked like a good event. From all the pictures, it seemed like the expo area was really lively.
Yeah.
A lot of pros there working booths. I saw a lot of people there that I hadn't seen in a while, photos of them popping in and out. So it looked like it was a lot of fun to attend. The pro players tournament, still kind of a
little gaffy,
strange kind of gimmicky. Yeah, a little gaffy. But apparently Alan's considering, redrawing next year and things like that. So we'll see if it starts to straighten out a little bit. But a lot of good players were there for sure. And again, like I said, a lot of people involved in different booths and doing a lot more promotion these days. So it looked like it was actually a pretty good time.
It was, Mike. And I'll be honest with you, I didn't get to hang out a whole lot in the pro arena, in the library. You know what I mean? It couldn't be a more stiff event. It felt dated when I walked in there. It's like you couldn't say a word. And
well, the pro event's always been kind of an afterthought. There's a lot of weird kind of different rules around there for, being in your booth, things like that. And the setup is not very plush.
Yeah.
But it is what it is. It's Super Billiard Expo has been that way for a million years, and everybody still loves going to it. And the cue makers all do great, and there's a lot of people there. There's a lot of buying at that that expo. So it works, So if it works and people keep coming, there's no need to change a lot.
No, I mean I think like more more than any other event, it's definitely a cue maker show for sure. And
Yeah, no doubt
seeing
about it.
all the
Sure.
custom cue makers from all across the country and really the world, is pretty awesome to see. They take a lot of pride in making sure that this event is their best foot forward. And I'm friends with a lot of guys, a lot of guys who attended that show, and there's always this like race to, am I going to finish my stuff ahead of Philly? And so quite the grind for them. It was great seeing a bunch of awesome cues. Jacoby won the cue of the year once again, which was cool. But I don't know how I feel about a semi-production company going up against the custom guys. Um,
That's a custom.
you know what I mean? Like the one-man bands, or the two guys working out of the garage versus a full-blown shop. But there was some beautiful cues, including theirs. And I really can
Yeah, yeah.
appreciate like the effort that goes into them preparing and what they put forward at that event. I've attended quite a few, Mike, over the years, not and more so in the last like 5 or so years, pre-COVID, post-COVID, and for me, from like a floor standpoint, the layout was a little bit different, but it was great. I mean, everywhere you look, there was something going on, whether it
Going
was the guys like Federer, Sky having their own stuff, whether it was, Salato guys who were there, Q Tech, Lucasi and Q and Case, and Jason
It's such
Shaw.
a good mix. It's such a good mix. That's why it's the most active show of any of them that I see, and the most active
Yeah,
exhibit area of any place that has tournaments with it, because
right.
it's a good mix of the custom cue guys and great buyers for those guys, and then the players all have booths and they're selling merch, and then you get the bigger companies, the Q Techs and the Olhausens and whatever, will all come there and set up shop too, because they can feed off of all that activity. So it's really one of the most active. It might be the most active, quote show in pool. Period.
It's a buyer show, like you mentioned, Mike. I mean, guys come in from all over the world, and it's people wanting to interact with their favorite players, buy from their favorite cue makers, sell. Whether you have a booth or you're just hustling out of the back of your 4x8 or 6x12 or whatever. 'Cause I saw some big cases out there.
Right.
Guys are wheeling and dealing. There was action going on, and it's just cool, man. I mean, people really show up to that event from all over the world, and I was on the fence whether or not to go this year. I'm really glad I did. It continues on the track that it's on. Continue to attend, and it's just short enough to be able to enjoy without getting burnt the fuck out, Mike. Because some other shows, it's just like
Yeah,
you
yeah,
know,
no doubt. Yeah, it's a quick weekend, but and I was watching the activity going around there and looking at all the posts and the photos, things like that. It was the first time in a long time I was like, damn, I actually would have liked to have been there over the weekend, just kind of like
yeah.
milling around, not really working, but just going and checking it out and seeing people and saying hello. So yeah, it made me tempted to take a run next year.
Yeah, for sure. I wouldn't blame you if you did, Mike. And like I said, on the pro side of things, for me, it was kind of an afterthought. But the last couple of months for me on the pro side of things have been more of an afterthought. It's like there was a lot of great players there, which was cool. The format, like you mentioned, was still very gaffy, with losers playing losers and then winners playing winners. I can't say I'm a fan of that. I never have been, to
Yeah,
be honest with you. But
yeah, no,
it
it's awesome.
sounds like Alan Jr. is going to be making some changes here in the next coming event. Hopefully,
Yeah, that's what he kind of suggested, was that they would do a redraw and mix put the losers in with the winners, and yeah, that's makes all the sense in the world. I mean, it's common sense more than
yeah,
anything.
and we've talked about this before about different events having like their own identity, right, Mike? But I don't feel like this is the kind of separation where I can really appreciate from like a sports
Yeah, no,
standpoint.
I've been yeah, no, I've been a big proponent of taking these events, even the Matchroom events, take a couple of them, make them just a little bit different so that they've got their own, but not do something gaffy.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I mean, because like you said, it's common sense, right? Losers playing losers, winners playing winners. But it was the who's who of players, Mike. I mean, there was a lot of guys there, both on the American side, the European side, a couple of Asian players as well,
Yeah,
which makes it feel like some of these Indonesian players are going to make it run for the Reyes Cup. So it was cool seeing these guys that I haven't seen play before, but I've been hearing a lot about them. especially guys coming off the heels of PLP, which was awesome as well. But yeah, I mean, all in all, it was A+. It was just, like I said, just good enough and long enough and short. Well, I guess short enough to thoroughly enjoy, and it wasn't like long days, because Vegas is exhausting. I mean, you're getting worn out from the event, you're getting worn out from the nightlife. You're just the time difference, you name it, it catches up with you. Where Philly, I feel like you're getting out of there at a decent time. You can go enjoy dinner, you can enjoy some good matches. And then you can, whether you're at the hotel or wherever you are, you can still sweat stuff online, which is cool, whether it was the action or the tournament or whatever. So, Niels ended up coming away with the victory. Mike, the old man, does it once again. So
how about that?
pretty awesome though, Mike. I'm a big Niels Feijen fan, Mike. And the last few, he doesn't play very many events these days, which is great. But the last few events that I can recall him like really being invested into, U.S. Open, he's a semifinalist. I think the major before that, he was a semifinalist as well.
The International Open, I think he was a semifinalist as well.
Making a run, Mike.
Or quarterfinalist for sure. Yeah. No, he's one of those guys who's got that talent and he's got the mental makeup to take time off. And then when he goes someplace, he's like, okay, this week I'm here for business. And he's fresh and he's got, a fresh attitude and a fresh take. And he's got that great, playing, mechanics that he's always worked so hard on. It makes him a threat.
Well, he's one of these guys where I think he's now seeing life outside of pool, which is awesome. He's got a family. He's working on content with his YouTube channel, which is great, by the way. Really professionally done. He still took the time to engage at the booth, at the Moscone booth, which out of all the vendors, that's the one that always like scratches my head. And I know they attend a lot of places, but it's always like, man, those guys make a trip to come out there and attend via Italy. So, but it was cool seeing him go on a run, Mike. It was a great final. He beats Kaci in a pretty I don't say easy way, but pretty convincing fashion. And I don't know if he's got another run in him to last him throughout the whole year. I don't know what his dedication level is going to be like as far as making Moscone. Like, he'll say all the right things. I want to compete. I still want to go and play. But what's his schedule going to be like to reflect his ability to contend for that team? And realistically, I feel like a guy like Niels, I know he's got a lot of history in the Moscone Cup. He's very well decorated, but can he sustain the whole year to make a run on points? We'll see, Mike. I'm not sure where you stand on it, but that's where I'm at with it.
Yeah, no, I think someone like Niels has got to be able to snap one off somewhere along the line if he wants to really have hopes of being on the team. Because I don't see him, being a top 8 guy in 7 consecutive events. You know what I mean? To build up the points without getting a win. So I think he'd have to win one of the open events to have a real shot.
Well, depending on what the odds look like, and especially going into the UK Open, I'm not even sure if he's on the players list, but if he is, especially considering the guys who are out, which we'll get to here in a little bit, he might be like one of the guys you might want to fire a little bullet at to see if you can get some pretty decent odds on the money, because you got to imagine, how he's hitting the ball right now versus the field as well. He'd be a good guy to kind of roll the dice on, outside of the obvious, like a filler and guys like that as well, of course. But another guy who was in that final, Mike, Clint Kaci, coming off the win out there at the McDermott, Mike, barring the injury, you gotta say this guy is probably in the same breath as like a Chuo or a Federer as far as consistency over the last like 2.5 years, Mike.
Yeah, no, he's since his comeback, since last June, at the World Championship, he's been, really pretty consistently, up there, solid playing. So, that's scary, because it seemed like it was going to take him a while to kind of really get back in this the thick of things. But he's right there. He's consistency wise, he's right up there with everybody right now.
Dude's a fucking monster, Mike, through and through. Like, and I don't even consider him like, I don't even consider Kaci like a workhorse in terms of And I don't know what his preparation like, but just from like an optic standpoint, it doesn't seem like the most like I'm gonna go and pound
Yeah,
drills for 12 hours a day. You know what I mean? Like as far as his dedication level, from that aspect. But the guy is just so super
yeah,
talented, Mike. I love watching the guy play. Besides his like um like his big personality and in terms of like his stature, it's like, man, the dude is just intimidating on the table. He's got a killer break, he's got finesse when he
yeah.
needs to. His pocketing is still as sharp as ever, Mike. I know we saw him last year at the Moscone Cup, but I gotta imagine this guy's gonna be on there in terms of points this year, because he doesn't look like he's slowing down any whatsoever, Mike. And I want to see him kind of get out. He's one of the few guys where I want to see him get on an early run throughout the year and then see where he's at, because we saw him disappear after that finals appearance in the World Championships last year. So is
Yeah,
that going
yeah,
to happen
yeah, yeah. He was
again?
fat and happy after
Yeah.
that.
Well, but then you would think, Mike,
Yeah,
there's going to
no,
be some
it's
rust, but it's like then here he is again,
well,
and again.
there was when it came to the Reyes Cup.
Oh, well, yeah,
He was
yeah,
and so the Reyes Cup lit a fire
right.
under him.
Well, it was embarrassing,
To
Mike. Right? I
going
mean,
forward,
is that a
and
fair statement? His performance out there by his
it
standards.
was a little bit. Right. And so for him, I think that lit a fire on him. And I think since then, we've seen him a little more
Right.
driven than we had in the
Yeah.
past. And that's all he needs, because he's got the talent. If he's got the drive, the talent's there.
And you made a great point, Mike. I mean, as far as the Reyes Cup, and it does seem like that was the tipping point for him following that, after not seeing him for basically like 3 months, Mike. And so yeah, I can't wait to see more of the guy personally. He'll be a showcase of any
Yeah,
event.
he's fun. Great guy. Yeah.
On
Yeah.
In terms of the European Moscone Cup team, Mike, who's your early? Give me your early top 5 for April, Mike.
Well, Kaci for sure.
Is
Filler.
it for sure? Oh, Phil, that guy. Is he going to make the team this year, Mike? Is he going to be allowed to
Yeah.
play on the team this year? I feel like is a better question.
Well, that's not my call, but it's when it comes to point and talent, he's going to be there.
Yeah.
So buckle up for that. And if everything gets squared away with WPA and Matchroom, which we'll talk about later, then there's no questions, right? So there's no reason to say nice points, but you're not playing. So yeah, I definitely see Filler in there for sure. After that, man, it's completely up in the air. You got these dark horses who come in and all of a sudden win a tournament and throw their hat in the ring, and it just kind of muddies up the waters a little bit.
Which I love.
Young guys who are starting. Yeah, you like that. Young guys starting to make a little bit of make some waves on Maritz or something like that. So it's going to be an interesting watch during the year. And we have no idea. I mean, we can talk about this later too, but there's still so much we don't know about for the rest of the year in terms of WNT events and Matchroom events. So I don't even know. I'm assuming it's going to be 3 players based on points, but it won't likely be the same thing as last year, where it was, okay, the first guy's decided after this tournament, the second side decided after the next tournament, third guy's decided after the third tournament. But I don't think there'll be that. It'll be that sequence again. Will it be 3 automatics or 2 or more? Who knows? So we don't really know a lot at this point.
You kind of lose credibility if you change it up, like after a couple of years, in my opinion, Mike, from the players versus the promoter standpoint, and I know it's an exhibition.
I don't know. Yeah, no, I don't know. But, the main thing is you don't change it up and make it all of a sudden a bunch of wild cards again, because you've been preaching this merit-based system for the 3 years, 4 years, running through the buildup of WNT, right?
Right.
So that would be a little bit of that would look a little funny to me. But tweaking and changing other things for a made-for event like the Moscone Cup, that doesn't bother me, and I don't think it really bothers the players much. They've been through so many changes over the years: length of the races, size of the team, length of the tournament, of the whole match itself. You know, automatic qualifiers. You know, Team USA was all wild cards. You know, so it was you know, I think with that event you can tinker as much as you want as long as you're not going against, you know, what you've said is important to you, like this merit-based system. So I expect it though. I'd be surprised if there's ever fewer than 3 automatic spots, because that's, you know, that's what gives the Moritz and the Piases and the, you know, guys like that, the Sanjins, that's what gives them hope. That's what keeps them driving through the year. So because they always say, you know, listen, we're not going to pick any first year wild cards. Well, then you got to earn it. If there's only 1 or 2 spots available, you know, you kind of throw up your hand and say, what am I doing here? I'm just beating my head against the wall.
Well, I mean, you kind of figure there's
So,
probably 1
you
or
know,
2 spots available though, Mike, just given they like after last year and the end of last year and everything that happened with Josh, like, yeah, you can have a merit-based system, but they'll always have that ace up their sleeve where if they want to, they can justify pulling the rug out from underneath you, you know? And so I think
you know, you can't go to that well too many times. I mean, you know, last year it was kind of, you know, I kind of understood it from
right.
you know, 2 guys knocking heads together, but you don't want to make a habit of it because then you just lose the confidence and you lose the respect of everybody who's who you're trying to convince that what you're doing is a real tour and real professional sport and merit based and everybody's got the same opportunities and all that stuff. So you can't yank the player, you can't yank the rug too often to get away with it.
Well, let's talk about professional tour, Mike, because as I turn on social media these days and follow Matchroom Pool, right, this professional tour that I'm seeing, it's a lot more gimmicky as the days go along, Mike. Especially given the event upcoming out there in the UK, Mike. I saw a gentleman by the name of Pieface get announced, which okay. I saw a guy named Jackmate get announced. Okay. Saw a gymnast as well. And oh, by the way, you got Barry Hearn and Andy Goldstein, right? That are going to be playing in the event. So no announcement as it pertains to, you know, the Josh Fillers of the world going and competing after, you know, coming off the European Open and the last 6 months.
Pieface took Federer's spot, right?
Well, that's the other thing, Mike, is like this attitude where it's just like we're not gonna talk about the obvious, right? Like we're gonna promote these social media heads, so to speak, and instead not even make mention of the fact that, you know, Federer's not going to be playing. He'll be in Vietnam. Fran isn't going to be playing. He'll be in China attending.
Well, Federer's going to be in China too.
Oh, is he for the Guangzau as well?
Yeah, he's
the
going to
Expo?
be at GBE. Yeah, he'll be at GBE. Shane will be at GBE.
Yeah.
And that's something. Listen, you know, are they not going to be on Moscone Cup because of that? You know, don't stick your teeth, you know, the tips of your skis out there too much, because that's they've known, Matchroom's known for quite a while that as soon as they announced the UK Open dates, they knew that was a problem for these guys who are committed with companies that they represent. Right. So believe me, it's not going to cost them.
That's a big event. Mike, GBE is huge for every company in the industry that goes.
It's huge for those companies, and if you're paying these players, you know, real money, yeah, you damn well expect them to be there when you're at the biggest place where you're trying to sell your product. So, so that's to me is very understandable. It's unfortunate that the dates overlap, but you know, that's the break. So, anybody who thinks this is going to affect their you know, chances of being on Moscone Cup is kind of reaching out there.
No, I mean, I saw the post from Jim Telfer on a Matchroom forum regarding like
missing an
event without
Jim knows better. Jim knows
who
better.
needs a doctor's note, Mike, to not attend a pool tournament? I mean, really, you know what I mean?
Well,
like,
listen, you know, there is going to be a time if Matchroom and WPA get their, you know, acts together and everybody's allowed to play everywhere. There's going to be overlapping events, okay? And if you're Matchroom and you're investing all this in certain events and certain players and trying to help them build whatever, there's going to be some of those, okay, there's got to be some kind of rules here. There's got to be some kind of incentive to play in it or penalty for not, whatever. There's got to be a little bit of that in there, right? I don't think doctor's notes is it and whatever, but there's going to be some, there's going to have to be some give and take on from the players in Matchroom on what the expectations are going to be if you want to get selected for these invitational things, whether it's, you know, the long awaited World Cup of Pool or the Whirlpool Masters or PLP or Moscone or Reyes, whatever. If you want to be eligible for those, you're going to have to kind of, you know, be expected to participate more than just, you know, show up every once in a while because you feel it.
Fair enough,
know?
Mike. But then we saw the
So
PLP kind of shift gears a little bit, you know, in terms of it being whatever top 14 players to we're going to take these, you know, more. We're going to take more of a we're going to put more value on these up and coming players, which I love, by the way. I can really appreciate that idea, but it does go against what we've been hearing as far as, you know, hey, listen, it's going to be merit based, it's going to be professional, and if you're in the top,
well, it's still going to be merit based, but it's still going to be merit based, but instead of 14, it'll be 10 or something like that. That's still merit. You know, give them more of those marketing vehicle picks. That I don't have a problem with that. That makes sense to me. It's still merit based if there's 10 spots out of the 16 based on merit. That's still merit based to me. So that's fine. It's a you know, an individual.
Would you feel that way if you were like, if let's say it shifted from 14 to 10 or 12 to 10, let's say you were number 11, you know, would you still feel that way if you were the guy on the short end of the stick?
If they told me before the year started that that's what it's going to be, then I know I got to get to number 10.
Yeah.
That's, you know, that's what, you know, it's number 17's not bitching about the field not being bigger than 16. You know, he knows where he's got to get. So if they switch it to 10, you know where you got to get.
Or just getting a better market. You know, let's start there, you know, because that might get you a pretty good invitation.
Right off the bat. Exactly. You know, be the best player in Indonesia.
That's
and you're good.
Hey, you know what I mean? Come on down. You know, you're up next. Now, look, while I can appreciate the tinkering aspect of it and them not being settled on where this is going to land in terms of what's going to qualify you for X, Y, and Z, or changing that recipe for this event versus that event. And like we mentioned, have an identity with an event, right? In terms of, you know, how is it going to be different where it's not the same cookie cutter shit all the time, you know, because that's the part that that can get a little tough to watch, you know, over and over and over again personally. But, you know, back to some of these guys who are being announced, Mike, while I can appreciate trying to get new eyes on the event, and a guy like Andy I get because he's got a real sports background and what he does out there in the UK. Barry, it's his show, do whatever the fuck you want. Okay. You know what I mean? Like I get it. But like Mike, I don't fancy myself big on social media, despite the fact of doing all this, right? So like when I saw Pie Face get introduced today, right? I'm just like, this is where we come to.
You're starting to sound a little salty about not getting an invite.
I would, you know, hey, listen, if I can, let me tell you something, Mike, if I can grow the page by another like 400,000 followers, if I sign up for an event, I better goddamn well get one of my own Matchroom promo photos on there. Seems like
it's all Mike. It's all a matter of perspective. Okay, so it's a 256 player field. If they have 10 of these guys, is it a big deal? Is anybody really getting, shunned by not being able to get that 251st spot? If there are 10 guys, I don't care. It's if it's a media thing, if it's a marketing thing, that's okay with me. Everybody knows these guys are out in 2 matches anyways. Sure. So it's get some traction, get some followers, get some eyes on the screen. First 2 days of which are pretty boring of an event like that, and maybe some of the rest of the event because they decide they like what they saw. That to me, I don't have a problem with any of that. I don't want to see 10 guys in a 128-man field, but in a 256, 6 guys, 7 guys, whatever, That doesn't bother me.
Look, I get it to an extent, but not. I don't like putting a spotlight on things like this while also just pretending like there's not other things going on that are just that you're not wanting to give attention to and just pretend like it's not happening, Mike. You
Like
know what I
lack of
mean? Like
schedule.
lack of schedule for one. Yeah, that's a realistic thing, Mike.
No, it
I
is.
mean, I know,
It is.
and I know they're putting out, the Florida Open and the U.S. Open, and they're opening up Moscone Cup tickets for sale, and all these things. You know what I mean? But it's just this attitude of like, hey, we're gonna pick and choose what we want to do and how we want to do it, and it's just it kind of it can leave a
Well, do you really think that they're put pie face in there so they don't have to talk about the World Cup of Pool? No, they're looking at this event and saying, okay, what do we do to make this event more interesting or whatever? Are they still avoiding talking about World Cup of Pool or Reyes Cup
yeah,
or
yeah.
Pool Masters? Yeah, they are, but they're not smoke screening it by this stuff. They're just taking this event and saying, okay, as far as this event goes, what are we going to do that's going to make it different? What are we going to do that's going to get more eyeballs? Okay, let's focus on this event. It's not let's get pie face here so we don't have to talk about the World Cup of Pool. So those are they're two to me separate things. But when you're talking about players and expectations and merit base and all this stuff, and listen, we're not telling Matchroom anything they don't already know. If all this stuff was available, announced, and explained in December for the upcoming year, no questions. I mean, we probably wouldn't have anything to talk about through the middle months of the year. So listen, they understand it. I think that they've got to be, they're very cognizant and probably pretty embarrassed about the fact that we're here and we still don't know half of what the hell's going on this year. But hopefully they'll get that figured out. And I would expect after all the grief that they're taking this year, that the preview into 2026 will be slightly earlier in the window.
Well, this isn't anything new, Mike. I mean, this is something that we've been saying for some time.
No, it's not. But this is the worst. This is the worst that it's been. This is the worst that it's been by far.
I would only agree to that if we're saying because last year was so obvious that like, hey, we had the same problem and players were complaining about it over and over and over again, as far as the lack of calendar. And towards the end of last year, it was still a lot of things being discussed, whether publicly or otherwise. And I mean, listen, we had Emily on before. She made mention of the fact that there was a possibility or hinted at the fact that, the World Cup of Pool would be at the beginning of the year. Now here we are going into 5 months into it. And I don't know if it's going to happen again, if they're going to skip it again this year. I'm not so sure, Mike, but it's the lack of any kind of clarity on some of these subjects that's a little, I don't even want to say concerning. It's just a little exhausting,
Yeah, it's exhausting because we keep asking and frustrating because they keep basically saying, we don't talk about things unless we've got something to say. Well, that's fine. I understand that. You don't want to just talk for the sake of talking, and we're looking into it, and we hope to have it this year, whatever. That's nonsense. So, but get it prepped.
Yeah, I mean, I try to. I tried to get Emily to do a little interview there at the Super Billiards Expo. Okay, and needless to say, it didn't go so well. Didn't go so well, Mike. Didn't go so well. I don't know if I'm guessing we probably pissed her off at some point, or I probably pissed her off at some point over the last couple of months. Not sure how, but yeah, she didn't want no part of having any kind of interview. I mean, at least on the record, you know what I mean? And the little bit that we did discuss off the record wasn't much, at all. So I don't.
I would avoid conversations right now too if I really wasn't going to have answers for the questions I knew that were coming. Right. So, everything that's out there we can talk about, we know about, whatever. Everything that's not out there, they don't really want to go out of their way to discuss. So, I'm not surprised. Like I said, I just hope that at some point, we get something, that they get something put together.
No Shane, no Federer, no FSR there at the UK Open, Mike. Is it Filler's tournament to win once again, Mike?
It's probably his tournament to win, even if those guys are there.
You would think so, right? Even still, especially given that last performance at the
Josh
European.
Josh seems to have a little bit of mission. He have a little bit of a mission, that he's on this year, which would be a surprise. And he's still probably the best player in the world anyway. So yeah, it's Josh's tournament to win. Again, it's tough to win 2 open events in the same year, no matter who you are. So he's already got one under his belt. Not going to be easy, but if any.
I hope he does. I hope he does because just from like the pettiness standpoint, and I'm not even sure that it's about the money at this point. It's just more about sticking it to him after what happened last year, and then not wanting to really acknowledge much in terms of like Derby City winning, keeping him off TV table for the better part of the European Open, and then he's a big story, Mike. He always will be, and his lack of presence in events is massive. The guy is box office with a lot of personality. And so from
just keep your eye on the Killer Fillers social media page. You'll find out everything you need to know.
Learn how to play 8-ball. Follow Killer Fillers on YouTube, Mike. No, but I want to see him. I want to see him do well. I do. I want to see him win. I want to see him get like above and beyond anybody else this year in terms of points. Where like you can't deny the kid, and if you do, they're gonna.
Are you picking him for the World Championship? Assuming we have one, or whatever it's going to be. But
has it been announced, Mike? Did I miss the? I know I saw Dick Face get announced, but did we get a World Championship get announced this year, or did I miss that? Yeah, nothing yet. No. So yeah, I would definitely pick him to win the World Championship for sure. And I know Federer's gonna have something to say about that, but the guy is just when top guys are inspired, and when they got a chip on their shoulder, Mike, they're different. I've seen it with Shane. I've seen it with and there's like I'm talking about like the 1% of the 1%ers. You know what I mean? Like these, these alpha leader top guys, not the middle of the pack guys, but Josh has been there, done that. You want to talk about a resume? The guy's got everything under the sun on that mantle, but I feel like in terms of watching him play that he's just hitting a different gear, which I can't help but be in awe of, you know what I mean? And especially given the history of over the last 8 months or so, makes you want to root for the guy. Or, if you're still, hating on the guy for decisions that were made, you're going to tune in if you're on that side of the coin just to watch him lose, so,
right.
But I want to see him do well. I'm not going to lie, Mike. I want to see him, where they can't deny the guy on TV table, because it's awkward and unnecessary, because I feel like if things were just addressed versus just trying to pretend like it's not there, then it wouldn't be shit to talk about. You know what I mean? But don't keep the silence as part of the story and then be upset whenever it's being brought up.
Conspicuous by your absence. Conspicuous by your absence is kind of really too obvious.
We saw that post from Mike, and I know they mentioned, what was it, like if you miss 2 majors, you're not going to be in the Moscone Cup. Federer now did not attend the European Open. Federer is not going to be attending the UK Open. You think any chance, barring a doctor's note, that he's not going to be on this year's Moscone Cup team?
I think he had the doctor's note for both. Right? I think he literally had the doctor's note for.
Whose job is that to verify if the doctor's note is legit, Mike? Like who's making that? Who's making that call to like say, hey, doctor, is this a legitimate doctor's note from you?
Excuse me, Dr. Zhivago is
like someone's got to do to verify. If not, they're just printing up. It's 2025. You can get Chat GPT to write your doctor's note. I'm imagining.
Yeah. No, I think it's more a matter of a conversation, one-on-one conversation with the player, when it's a Federer or a Filler or a Shane or a FSR or whatever. So he had the doctor's note. He was physically unable at that point of the year for the European Open, the UK Open. those dates came out after he and Shane and FSR were committed to their company. I think that he's fine. He's not ghosting anybody. So I don't think that that's an issue.
How do you feel like their partners feel like for having these events overlap, Mike? These two of those three guys that we made mention of are Q-Tech players, and Q-Tech being their primary, their main Q sponsor for the World Nine Ball Tour.
It's not another tournament; it's a trade show. So if it's a business function, listen, you can only base. You don't expect Matchroom if they're kind of tied to certain dates or windows for location, for TV partnerships, things like that. You're not going to not do it because you got three guys who have to go to a trade show in China, no matter what the three guys are. So,
Mike, you're talking about the world number one. You're talking about arguably the most popular guy on the planet in the sport, in Shane.
Well, those are obviously going to be the guys. Those are obviously going to be the guys where this type of conflict is going to come in, because they're the ones that are in demand by both players and the companies that they represent. So they're always going to be the likely guys who a conflict like that is going to affect. But listen, you can't start playing your tournament calendar around when the hell GBE is. I mean, there's so many events around the world that are going to be important to a couple of people, couple of players, big ones and little ones. You got to do your business. You got to run the tournament when you can run the tournament. You got 253 other players you got to worry about. That happens.
That's all right. They got Jackmate. They're it's good to go. You know what I mean? Run it. Hit. We're going. We're going live, baby. We're going live. On the note of overlapping calendar, Mike, WPA and Matchroom back in, when was it now, Mike? I guess back at the Rio. So I guess now 2 months, we had heard about the possibility of an agreement being made and heard rumbling, excuse me, and rumors that they had made some ground on that. Any update that you can give us, Mike, on that front?
It's just, it's still kind of the same thing. It's far enough along where it looks like it will get done at a certain point if it hasn't already been. But it gets to the point now where it's tiny tweaks back and forth, and the lawyer sends one letter to another letter or to another lawyer, and he shows it to his people, and three of them are in different parts of the world, and it takes 4 days to get an answer back, and all of a sudden 2 weeks go by and nothing. So, I mean, I think that the fact that the WPA came out and went ahead and once again ratified this UK Open as okay for everybody to play in is a sign that there hasn't been any real crash in the talks.
It leaves you to be optimistic still,
something like
for sure.
Yeah, of course. So it still seems like it's an inevitability. And as long as they're still progressing and they're getting passes on these tournaments, there's no real rush. There's no deadline rush to get it done. And I don't know if the WPA at some point says, listen, we either got to shit or get off the pot with this, or Matchroom does, or whatever. So, we'll see what happens. But I expect it's still going forward, and we'll find out soon.
I've heard similar, Mike, that news is coming. I know we said that back 2 months ago as far as formal news, but I'm with you in that them making that post on social media, and we saw that last year. I think it was back in Vegas when WPA had made a post, and Matchroom was like, well, wait a minute, we ain't agreeing to nothing, so I don't even know what they're talking about.
Yeah, that's why this year has been a little bit different. Yeah. It's been a little bit more tight-lipped, a little bit more. We're not talking about anything until we've got something to actually say, and no one's going to speak for the other side. We're all going to speak for this together. That's fine. That makes sense to me. That's smart. So again, we'll just have to wait and see if that happens.
Well, you learn from past mistakes, right? If nothing else, and or if you can call it a mistake, whatever. Yeah. Maybe putting your foot in your mouth to some extent, but. I mean, look, them putting out a statement saying the UK Open is good to go. I'm good with, but I hope that there's something to celebrate sooner than later for the sake of all these players, and how it'll affect other events going forward, remains to be seen.
That's the whole thing. I mean, I think that there will be an agreement, but I can't wait to see when it comes out, because there's going to be a lot of questions unless it's a really detailed release. There's going to be a lot of questions about what all this stuff means. As far as points go, WPA points go, WPA rankings go, Matchroom tournaments go, conflicting dates go.
Well, there's so much on the calendar from WNT, and I don't mean from like Matchroom events per se. I'm not talking about their open events or their quote unquote majors, but like just as far as people that they're affiliated with putting on events that are, that go towards those WNT rankings. There's a lot going on throughout the year, and it seems like every time I turn on social media, I mean, I saw the Mexico Open get announced, and I mean, you name it. We've already seen.
Right.
I think we've already seen this year, Mike, if I'm not mistaken, 2 WNT events going on at the same time on different parts of the world. You know what I mean? So, how's that going to affect?
Yeah, that's the smart thing to do, really, to have these regional events regional. So that people in those different parts of the world don't have to travel all over the world to get these points. So that to me is what you want to do. That's what you want to build over time. Now, I think in some instances, the proliferation of all these regional events tagged as WNT could well have been one of the talking points in the whole contract negotiation. I mean, the big stuff was probably easy to get out of the way. Now you get down to that little minutia, and how does that affect rankings? How does that affect events? How does that affect the national federations in these different countries, where all of a sudden all these regional WNT events are popping up? Those get to be points that need to be discussed. As I said, I think this is going to, I can't wait to be announced, because I can't wait to ask all these questions. There's just a lot that I would like to see answered. Now, whether we'll get answers on them or not, that remains to be seen. But I can't wait to ask the questions.
I won't hold my breath, Pinozo. Although you might want to, when you blow out your birthday cake later on this evening, maybe you can wish for that one. So now listen, it's
going to be a long time to blow out the damn candles.
A lot of fucking candles to blow out, Mike. I mean, you got a lot of candles there, buddy, on this cake this year.
Like 3 cakes.
No, look, it's these, whether they're companies that are affiliated with the events being put on, or the location, or whatever, like those events and getting some respect is massive for them, and I mentioned the Mexico Open, right? Because them finally getting something that where they can hope they're going to get a decent amount of international talent, at those events is huge for that country. And you never know what it can snowball into, what country is going to be the next Vietnam or the next Indonesia or whatever, you know what I mean? And so while it may not be a quote unquote like major, like a Hanoi Open or a UK Open or a European or whatever, it's still just as important for that own individual country and those companies who are there sponsoring and supporting it and all those things, And so,
yeah, but they can't put on what's essentially a regional event and expect to get a bunch of Asian players coming over and a bunch of
Well, I wouldn't have expected to see 2 Indonesian players at the Super Billiards Expo. Like the only thing that makes sense for me, Mike, is that they're making a run at the Reyes Cup. That's the only thing where logically I can justify that kind of expense, because and it's a case for a lot of these guys going and traveling to even these majors, because the events are so long, right? Like if I got to make final 8 to break even, Feijen 256, that's a tough ask. You know what I'm saying? So like these regional events that are being held are even more important to building a bankroll, because they're quicker. It's not as much of a toll on that bankroll, right? Because they're usually going to be 2 or 3 day tournaments, give or take, and they're going to go and grind and wind and just push them on through. Not like where you're playing 1 or 2 matches a day, like in these majors. So like these are important to sustain that economy for said professional player, Mike, to be able to maintain, being able to keep your head above water.
Well, that's why the more of them there are, the better it is for everybody, to me. Because Mexico Open, if you're going there to try to pick up some, playing the UK Open, it's only easier to play than playing the UK Open if the top 20 guys in the UK Open are not there. Right?
Well, I mean, unless you draw, Andy, you know what I mean? Then you're good.
Yeah. So the regional events where the fields are not as robust and strong and top heavy, that's good for the players who are trying to get a little momentum going, get a little bankroll going, get whatever else they have to do, get the experience, get the bankroll. That's why the more the better.
Yeah, I 100% agree. And those are the things that I hope aren't going to end up being a victim when it comes to this agreement. And that's what I'm going to be curious to see as far as like how that's going to be ironed out between the two.
I don't think they will be. I think that's, like I said, I think that's maybe some of what has held things up, just kind of getting that, okay, let's make sure we all understand what's going to happen with this and what's going to happen with that after this agreement. Don't want any surprises. That's where things kind of slow down the process.
Look,
so we need to get Joe Rogan to spot the U.S. Open. I think that would be really cool. And he's got to. I'm guessing he can give.
He's no pie face. He's no pie face, Mike. Let's be real about it.
Yeah. So yeah, if they could, I'm sure Matchroom has probably talked to Federer or someone about, or whatever about. Listen, what do you think the chance to get Joe Rogan there? Because that would become, then you would see, as a U.S. fan, you would see the value of doing one of those gaffy things. Right. I mean,
well, it's ironic because if that were the case, you like all these negative comments you see online, at least from the American fans, would all be turned from the positive. Oh, he's the savior.
So it's all a matter of perspective. So we look at the UK Open and we see all these a soccer player or something like that. We just think it's stupid. Well, if Joe Rogan and MJ, had spots in the U.S. Open, the
talking about Jordan, Mike, is that what you're saying?
Yeah.
Oh man, you get Jordan playing, I'm buying front row seats to that one,
Yeah.
Sure.
So yeah, it's all a matter of perspective. So yeah.
Look, it's.
I think you got to get a spot in the U.S. Open. You just got to get a few more followers, and then you can just start waving that. Waving that follower list, social media impact list.
This is what happened, Mike. So,
or you can get Joey to play for you because Joey did really well.
We'd be stealing. So just off the heels of the Expo. No, look, it was funny because when I woke up and saw that thing about Pie Face, I'm just like, who the fuck is Pie Face? Like, so I went and Googled, right? And I see, okay, what was it? Twitch star or whatever, streaming gamer or some shit. And I look at his followers and I was like, God damn, man, I thought I was just about to hit this milestone with 100,000 followers. Little do I know, I got, 500,000 more. I got to make up ground just to get announced. If I were to play the UK US Open, I mean,
You want someone to preach your word, you get someone who's got 1 million followers.
That's it.
Right. And that helps. Look, that's a connection.
You got to do what you can to try to get new eyes on the sport for sure. And even more so these days, given the fact that now basically everything's behind a paywall. Now, which paywall that is, I don't know. I don't know if I'm paying $10 for WNT or if I'm paying $10 for digital pool or if I'm paying, $30 for this regional event out in North Carolina. I don't know where I'm sending money to. It's going all over the place, but for things not being viewed and accessible online for free, unless you're following some Vietnam page, it seems like, then you gotta think about creative ways to get new eyes to go and subscribe and send some money and put some viewers on these events, Mike.
Yeah. Yeah, no doubt.
How have you heard that that new platform is going, by the way, Mike? I think I pay $10 a month, but I haven't been watching a whole lot just because of the last couple of months. Like for me personally, I mean.
Yeah, listen, I think they're doing a nice job. I think that they've got that they'll really be able to take advantage of it going forward as far as loading up with content, old content, special stories, things like that. Do I want to see them get back to some free streaming of some events or parts of some events? Do that? I think they do. You can't. To me, you can't take this thing that you're trying to build and all of a sudden stuff the whole thing behind a paywall because that growth of the sport just isn't there. So you've got someone like these huge social media people who are going to play in the UK Open, right? Well, if every one of their fans has to pay $10 to watch that match,
they're not watching, Mike. They're not going to spend $10.
Yeah, so have you really gained what you wanted to gain? Now, if that was free live, now you got a lot of people taking a poke and taking a look. So I think that they need to add a free element back into it. If I'm a sponsor, if I'm a corporate sponsor, a company that they're a title sponsor event, things like that, I want to see big numbers of people who aren't already, I don't want to preach to the choir. I want to find some new faces. So I think they've got to, and I think that was really a good thing last year when they had a lot of those free matches, and then you get into the DAZN matches and things like that. So
Agreed.
I think that they'll have to find a balance between the two to get new faces involved and to increase the value to their business partners who are spending money with them, as from their title sponsors down to the Q-Techs and the Diamonds and the Rassens or whatever. If you took everything and stuck it behind a paywall, I don't think that's the smartest thing.
Well, it's like you built up these. You built. I agree with you, Mike. I mean, you built up these pages. Their Facebook, I think, has over 1 million followers. And I don't know where their YouTube numbers are, but I'm assuming they're pretty massive. That's generating pretty good revenue for them. But it's like, and I love the idea of having these exciting, like, I don't want to say trick shot style clips, but like just these exciting moments in a match be showcased on their Facebook platform. Because I do feel like that's a part of the puzzle. 100% agree. But if for me watching a tournament, I'm being more invested by the stories that are developing within said tournament, and I'm not going to know what those stories are going behind that paywall. I'll give you an example. Like I'll give you an example, Mike. So like the NFL season is coming up right here pretty soon, and or in the next few months. And Aaron Rodgers is the talk of the NFL, right? Who's he going to be playing for? I'll tell you what, I don't watch a whole lot of Steelers football, but if the guy signs with Pittsburgh, I'll probably want to watch week 1 of the Pittsburgh game. If he signs with the Vikings, even though they were already good, I'll probably want to watch him again. You know what I mean? And tune in to see how he's going to do. But it's because of these stories that like build up to where if I'm not, and I'm the guy who's not normally invested in those teams, right? I'm not a Pittsburgh Steelers fan, but I'll watch now because I'm invested in that story. You know what I'm saying? And so,
yeah. I think you still use money to create the stories and things like that, but I really do still think
I feel like they're more of like one-off exciting spots, like this golden break or and then the better part of the first half of the tournament just going to be these these social media stars getting the attention until they're out, because they're at least going to get a match on TV table if they're promoting them. You know what I mean? So it's like, how much are you really gonna? Because the stories for me is everything, and this is coming from someone who loves pool. Right? Like it's hard to watch some of these tournaments, Mike. I mean, it really is, and so you got to find like a hook, especially for the non-diehards, you know what I mean? To really get involved in. Now, like this got my feet in the water, but how are they going to jump on in? You know what I'm saying? And really dive in and watch more. What did Colin say over here? I don't know why his ass ain't at work. Put him behind a $10 paywall means.
I think basically agreeing with what we've been talking about, which is, you got to get fresh eyes on the game. So make some early matches free. You got to, listen, it didn't get to be 1 million social media followers.
Without those matches, Mike.
Because there was 1 million DAZN, people watching pool. So you hooked a lot of those people by the free offerings that you've had for the last year or so. So don't take that away from everybody.
Yeah. And I'm not upset if it's like one match here, or just like you said, like how they used to do it before, where it's just like, before you transition over to behind the paywall. And you see that with a lot of these pay-per-view streams and things like that. And I know that
they're making an effort. I think they're making an effort to do things that people kept asking for, which is we want to see more than just 2 tables. We want to see,
which is great, by the way, Mike.
Add more tables, add more. Great. So you rationalize that by saying, okay, we're going to have people have to pay for this extra expense that we're incurring to make things more available to people. But again, I don't think you can do that 100% at the expense of no free matches.
How are we going to get eyes?
I don't think that's
How are we
smart.
going to get new eyes to watch it behind that paywall? Because I'm not. Exactly. I wouldn't pay admission unless I was really, really invested. It's just like insert any obscure sport, right? I'm not going to go and spend $10 to watch the
Hey,
cornhole.
I'm a pie face fan. Money's no object. I'll pay whatever I got to do to watch him play.
Mike, did you know who the fuck Pie Face was before today?
I still don't.
You didn't type his name in Google, Mike?
I'm not that easy to hook. I saw his face. I'm like, not interested. I don't care what he does. I don't care if he's.
I thought it was April Fool's, Mike. I'm not even gonna lie. I really thought it was a joke. You know, I don't know, man. Listen, I can appreciate new ideas. I can appreciate, and like, here's the other thing. Is that
All of my fans, people, that would be a different story. I'm watching.
who was the one that brought it up, and then who was the one that made the call? Because I doubt Pie Face came knocking, and then they said, "Oh, we got him on. Let's promote it." Like somebody had to do some convincing to PF over there, and massage him a little bit to come on and be willing to be showcased for the UK Open, Mike. I'm just saying, you know.
I have no idea how that went down, but I'm sure it was.
Look, Mike, you're the journalist here from this duo, okay? So I'm gonna need you to do a little bit of work, buddy. I know it's your birthday and all, but I'm gonna need you to do a little bit of research. Maybe we can get Pie Face on the show. I would reach out to Matchroom, but every time I'm asking them for an interview, I ain't getting a response.
30 pool players are Pie Face. About 30 pool players are Googling Pie Face right now, it says. Yeah, they are, to see if they can reach him to find out what kind of spot he wants.
Yeah. I probably can't afford him bringing him on the show, but who knows? Maybe I'll reach out to him on YouTube. See, or maybe, you know what, Collins, if you're still watching, maybe Collins is the geek of the group. He probably knows who Pie Face is.
But it's only gonna be beneficial to you if you get him on your show and he shares the feed live.
Look, I'm not
on his page.
I'm not above that, Mike. That'll be part of the.
You pick up 20,000.
If I get him on the show, you better believe I'm saying, hey, do you mind sharing this to your Twitch feed? And I might even go and hit the subscribe button. You know, I'm not above that. You know, hell, if they're thirsty for new followers, hell, the page is the same. You know what I mean? Like, we want to get new eyes on it any which way you can. And look, there's a lot of great stuff going on in pool. A lot of great personalities. Some stories to be had if you're there, willing to do a little bit of work or follow on social media, whatever. There's a lot of really good dudes out there, and gals for that matter, that are doing some awesome things. You got the Ultimate Pool event going on there in Iowa, I think right now, which is free on Facebook. So I've been watching a little bit of Shane last night, watched some Savannah Easton last night, but those are the ones that I am invested in, that I want to watch, that I want to see how they're doing, and then to see these guys who get a chance to kind of go and make a name for themselves in these, gaffy short race formats on the bar table, and so, and I get you're going to have these like shining stars that weren't stars prior to, you know what I mean? I just don't want it to be like on the heels of like being a laughing stock at the same time, you know what I mean? Or being a pun on someone's late night talk show or whatever, you know what I mean? So, although I guess any pool in the news these days is going to be good news. Who knows? So,
yeah.
Anyhow, more stuff to be had this weekend. Watch Ultimate Pool if you guys are on Facebook. We'll be doing more stuff ahead of the UK Open as well once the draw is out. I do want to kind of get back into the swing of things, so I'm going to be doing more shows. Mike, are you going to be around next week?
Yes, I am.
Okay, well, you go enjoy the birthday, my man. I'm going to get out of here and probably get a little afternoon workout in, but keep your notifications on. Big shout out to all of our sponsors. We couldn't do it without them. And yeah, I guess we'll see everyone